I thought I had it all, a beautiful home, a family I cherished, and a life with my husband, Jack. But the moment he left for his mistress, thinking I'd fall apart and cry for a year, I realized I was stronger than he ever gave me credit for. He thought he knew me, but he didn't. I wasn't going to cry. I wasn't going to beg. Instead, I decided to take control of my own life and my own future. Jack's decision to walk away didn't destroy me, it set me free. I watched him leave with his bags, his eyes filled with satisfaction, thinking that he'd won. But little did he know, I was the one who was about to take everything he thought I'd lost. My name is Martha, and I've been married to Jack for 25 years. Our life together was never perfect, but it was mine. Or so I thought. We had raised 2 kids, built a life in our cozy suburban home, and made memories along the way. But somewhere between the bills, the stress, and the routine of life, Jack grew distant. It started small, late nights at work, business trips that became more frequent, and an unsettling coldness in his tone when we spoke. I didn't want to believe it. I thought it was just the pressures of life. But one day I saw the texts on his phone. The messages from a woman named Alicia. The messages that confirmed what I had feared. Jack was having an affair. I confronted him, and he didn't even try to deny it. He looked me in the eye and said, "I need more than what you can give me. It's over, Martha." Those words stung more than I expected. But I wasn't going to let him see me break. I stood tall, looked him in the eye and said, "If this is what you want, Jack, then go. But know this, I will not let you ruin me." And just like that, he walked out the door, leaving me behind with nothing but the life we had built. I didn't cry that night. I didn't scream or yell. I just sat there in the silence of our home, the echoes of the past ringing in my ears. I thought about the years of sacrifice, the love I had given him, and the children we had raised together. I thought about everything I had given up to make our family work. And then I realized something. He had taken so much from me without even thinking twice. But now it was my turn to take control. I knew I wasn't just going to let him leave with everything. He thought I'd be devastated, lost without him, crying over our broken marriage. But the truth was, I had one thing Jack didn't expect. I had the power to change my life. That night, as the darkness settled in around me, I made a decision. I was going to make him regret walking out. Not by hurting him directly, but by doing what I had always put off, living for myself. I had always taken care of others, put my needs last, but not anymore. The next day I took the first step. I went to the bank, withdrew everything we had saved. $740,000. I knew Jack wouldn't care about the money. He never did. But it wasn't just about the money. It was about taking back my life. I was going to live on my own terms, do the things I had always dreamed of. I bought a new house, a place where I could start fresh, away from the ghosts of the past. I signed up for a solo trip to Paris, something I had always wanted to do but had put off because Jack was always too busy. For the first time in years I felt free. Jack thought I would crumble, but instead I found my strength. I wasn't going to be the woman who cried for a year. I was going to be the woman who reclaimed her power. He didn't deserve to see me suffer. And he definitely didn't deserve to come back. But I didn't just leave it at that. I waited. I gave him time to think he had won, to think he could walk back into my life and pick up where we left off. But when he called asking to come back, I was ready. I didn't need to say much. I just handed him the divorce papers. And I watched his face fall. "What's this?" he asked, confusion and anger flooding his face. "It's over, Jack," I said, my voice steady. "You made your choice." He didn't expect that. He didn't expect me to be the one to walk away with my head held high. And just like that, I took back my life. The money, the house, the freedom, it was all mine. He thought he had control, but I had the last laugh. And as I closed the door behind me, I realized something important. I didn't need him. I was finally free, and that was worth more than any amount of money he could ever take from me. I woke up the next morning to the silence of my empty house. It had been just a few days since Jack left, but the emptiness felt like years. I had always prided myself on being the calm, collected one. Even when things went wrong, I found a way to keep going. But this time was different. This time I wasn't going to just keep going. I was going to do something for myself. Jack thought he could walk away, leaving me to pick up the pieces of our life, but he underestimated me. The night before, I had taken the first step, pulling the money out of our joint account. He had no idea. I knew he wouldn't care about the money, but that wasn't the point. The point was that I was taking control. I wasn't going to let him leave me with nothing. I was going to build something for myself. I stared at the account balance in front of me, the number glowing on the screen. $740,000. It felt unreal. 4 years I had sacrificed everything for Jack and the family. My career, my dreams, even my independence. I had put everything into our life together, but it wasn't enough for him. He wanted more. And when I couldn't give him more, he left. Well, now it was my turn. I wasn't going to waste any more time feeling sorry for myself. I called a realtor, made an appointment to see a new house, and even booked a solo trip to Paris. I didn't need Jack's permission. I didn't need anyone's permission. I was finally going to live for myself. When I walked into that realtor's office, I felt like a different person. I wasn't the woman who waited at home for her husband to come back. I wasn't the one who sat around hoping he'd change. I was the one in control now. And the house I chose, it wasn't a small, quiet place. It was big, spacious, filled with light. It was the kind of place I always dreamed of, but Jack never thought I deserved. I signed the papers that day. As I looked at the keys in my hand, I realized how far I had come. The woman I was before was gone. I was someone new now, someone strong. Someone who would never let anyone walk all over her again. It wasn't just the house or the money. It was the freedom. The freedom to do whatever I wanted. I didn't have to wait for Jack to give me permission anymore. I didn't have to worry about what he thought. I was my own person. That night I sat on the couch in my new home, looking around at the empty rooms. I had a few pieces of furniture, but that was all I needed. I didn't want to fill the space with things from the past. I wanted to start fresh. As the sun set outside, I thought about what came next. I wasn't just going to sit here and wait for life to happen. I was going to make it happen. I had always been there for everyone else, Jack, the kids, the house. But now it was my turn. I called my best friend, Linda. I bought a house, I told her, the excitement in my voice clear. It's mine. All mine. She was speechless for a moment, then laughed. You go, girl. That's amazing. We talked for a while and I shared all the things I was planning to do, my trip to Paris, the new job I was thinking about, all the things I had put off for so long. For the first time in years, I felt alive again. The next morning, I went to the bank to transfer the money. I hadn't told Jack about it yet, and I wasn't sure I ever would. He hadn't earned the right to know. I had every intention of moving on without him. When I came home, the house felt different. It was mine and it felt like a fresh start. I had put the past behind me, but there was one thing I hadn't expected. Jack called. He wanted to come by. I didn't pick up the phone at first, but after a few minutes, I felt a strange calmness wash over me. Picked it up. Hello. Martha, Jack said, his voice soft. I've been thinking about what happened. I'm sorry. His apology was almost laughable. I knew he didn't mean it. He was just trying to get back into my life, but it was too late. It's over, Jack, I said, my voice steady. You made your choice. Now I'm making mine. He was silent for a long time. I could hear the frustration in his breathing, but I didn't care. I wasn't the woman who would take him back. I had no more time for regret, no more time for excuses. Goodbye, Jack, I said and hung up the phone. I didn't feel a rush of emotions. There was no anger, no sadness, just a quiet satisfaction. I had done what I needed to do. I had taken control of my life. As the day passed, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. It was over. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I could breathe again. I had just settled into my new life when I got a call from Linda. Martha, you're never going to believe this, she said, her voice filled with excitement. I ran into Jack today. I paused for a moment, my fingers frozen around the coffee cup. Jack. I repeated. What did he want? Linda took a deep breath, as though unsure whether she should continue. He was asking about you. He said he regrets everything, that he wants to fix things. I felt a strange, cold sensation run through me. Jack was still trying to crawl back into my life, even after everything that had happened. I thought I was done with him. I had moved on. But hearing Linda's words brought back all the memories, all the pain I thought I had buried. I didn't respond right away. I let the silence linger, the reality of what Jack had done still fresh in my mind. I knew he wasn't truly sorry, he was just desperate, trying to find a way back into my life now that he saw what he'd lost. But I wasn't going to fall for it. "Tell him I'm not interested," I said, my voice steady. "It's over. For good." I hung up the phone, but the words echoed in my mind for the rest of the day. It was over. I had said it to him on the phone, and now I had to make sure it stayed that way. Jack had left me for another woman, and I wasn't about to let him waltz back into my life as if nothing had happened. But even knowing that, it was hard to shake the feeling that part of me still cared. I had spent so many years with him, shared my life with him, but that person was gone. The man I married, the man I thought I knew, had disappeared the moment he made that choice. I realized then that my journey wasn't just about moving on from Jack. It was about rediscovering who I was, beyond the roles of wife and mother. I wasn't just someone's partner or someone's mother. I was Martha. I had my own dreams, my own desires, my own future to build. It wasn't going to be easy, but I was done being the one who waited. Done being the one who gave and gave until there was nothing left. I had my life back, and I wasn't about to let anyone take that from me. I spent the next few days getting to know my new house, exploring the neighborhoods around me, finding little cafes I could visit, shops I had never noticed before. I had never taken the time to explore, always too focused on family, always making sure everyone else was happy. Now it was my turn. The money was still there, sitting in my account, waiting to be used however I saw fit. And I wasn't going to hold back. I started planning my trip to Paris. I had always wanted to go, but Jack had never been interested. He was always too busy with work or too distracted by his own desires. I wasn't going to wait for anyone to catch up with me. I was going to make the most of this new chapter in my life. I made an appointment to get my passport renewed, packed a small suitcase with a few outfits I had picked out, and let myself feel the excitement I had never allowed myself before. For the first time, I felt completely free. I was no longer tied to a man who didn't value me, a life that wasn't mine. I was Martha, and I was going to live for me. Jack tried to reach out again, sending me messages, calling me, but I ignored him. He didn't deserve my attention. He had made his choice, and now I was making mine. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't sad. I was calm, collected, and ready to move on. When I left for Paris, I was doing it for myself, not to prove anything to anyone else. It wasn't about revenge. It was about freedom. The day I boarded the plane, I felt lighter than I had in years. It wasn't just the weight of my past with Jack that I was shedding. It was the weight of being someone I wasn't. I had always been the one who sacrificed, the one who gave up her own dreams for the sake of others. But not anymore. I was taking back my life. I spent a month in Paris, exploring the city, tasting the food, wandering the streets without a care in the world. I went to art galleries, sat in cafes, and for the first time in a long time I felt alive. Jack never stopped trying to reach me, but each time I saw his name pop up on my phone, I just shook my head. I wasn't going to let him back in. I had my own life to live. The thought of going back to him, to that life, made me shiver. I had been given a second chance and I wasn't going to waste it. When I returned, I felt different. Stronger. I had spent so many years trying to please Jack, trying to hold our family together. But I realized that the most important thing was holding myself together. I wasn't going to let anyone take my happiness away from me again. Jack could live his life and I would live mine. I wasn't bitter. I wasn't angry. I was simply moving forward one step at a time on my own terms. I had been back for a few weeks now, and the novelty of living for myself was starting to settle into a routine. Every morning I woke up to the quiet of my new house, the sunlight filtering through the windows, filling the rooms with warmth. It was the kind of peace I had longed for, the kind of life I had always imagined for myself but never allowed. The decision to leave Jack had been hard at first, but now it felt right. I had become someone new, someone who didn't depend on anyone but herself. I was learning to navigate this life, figuring out what made me happy, what I wanted from the world, and how I could get it. I spent my days doing the things I had put off for years, reading books I never had time for, taking walks in the park, enjoying the simplicity of life. I even joined a local yoga class, something I had always wanted to do but never could because of Jack's demands. And it felt good. It felt liberating. But there were still moments when the memories of Jack crept in. Late at night, when the house was quiet, I would sometimes catch myself thinking about the years we had spent together. It wasn't the love I missed, it was the idea of it. I had built so much of my life around the concept of us, of being a family, and when that was torn away, it left a void that I couldn't fill easily. I tried not to dwell on it. I had to keep moving forward, not backward. I didn't want to fall into the trap of nostalgia, to remember him fondly and think that maybe, just maybe, we could have worked things out. I knew better. He made his choice. I was not going to let him make me feel small anymore. One afternoon, as I sat on the porch, enjoying the breeze and a cup of tea, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Linda. I hadn't heard from her in a few days, and I felt a pang of curiosity as I opened it. "Martha, you won't believe who came to see me today," she wrote. My heart skipped a beat as I read the message. It was Jack. He had gone to Linda asking about me. He told her he was sorry, that he realized what he had lost, and that he wanted to fix things. I stared at the phone for a moment, processing what I had just read. After everything that had happened, Jack still thought he could waltz back into my life? After all the pain, all the lies, he wanted to come back. I felt a wave of disgust rise in me, but it wasn't the rage I expected. It was calm, almost pitying. I didn't respond to Linda right away. Instead, I set the phone down and leaned back in my chair, staring out at the garden. It had been a few months since Jack left, and I had worked so hard to get to where I was now. I had built this new life for myself, and it was mine. I wasn't going to let him come in and ruin it. Jack was still thinking of me as if I were the same woman he had left behind. But I wasn't. I was stronger now, more independent, and far more self-aware than I had ever been. He had no idea who I had become. I took a deep breath and picked up my phone again. I typed out a short reply to Linda. "Tell him I'm done. I don't need him to fix anything. I've already fixed my life." I hit send and leaned back in the chair, letting the words settle in. It felt like a weight had been lifted from my shoulders. Jack was not going to get the satisfaction of seeing me fall apart. He was not going to get the chance to come back and pretend like nothing had happened. I had already moved on. Later that day, I went to the local coffee shop I had started frequenting. I had begun to enjoy the simple things, like sitting down with a cup of coffee and reading a book, something I hadn't allowed myself to do for so long. The barista, a young woman named Claire, smiled at me as I walked in. I had become a regular there, and she knew my order by heart. As I sat down at a table by the window, I felt the warmth of the sun on my face. I was alone, but I wasn't lonely. I was content, and that was enough. A few minutes later, I heard a familiar voice. "Martha, right?" I looked up and saw Jack standing by the counter, looking hesitant but determined. He was trying to act like nothing had happened, like he hadn't walked out on me and destroyed everything. I didn't want to deal with him. I had made my decision, and I wasn't going to let him drag me back into the past. I didn't say anything at first. I just watched him for a moment, letting the silence stretch between us. Finally, I stood up. "Jack, I don't think we have anything to talk about," I said calmly. "You made your choice. Now I'm making mine. And it doesn't include you." I didn't wait for him to respond. I turned and walked out of the coffee shop, leaving him standing there looking lost. I didn't feel bad about it. I didn't feel angry or sad. I just felt free. And that was all I needed. I had learned something important in the months since Jack left. I didn't need him to define who I was. I didn't need anyone's approval or validation. I had everything I needed within myself. I had already built my own happiness, and I wasn't going to let anyone take that away from me. I spent the following weeks focusing on myself, taking the time I needed to truly heal and discover who I was beyond the roles of wife and mother. I had never given myself the space to explore my own desires, my own dreams. I had always been so focused on Jack, on the kids, on the house, that I had forgotten what it felt like to live for me. But now I was learning. I started spending my mornings walking through the park near my house. I never used to enjoy it. Jack never wanted to go. He would always find an excuse, saying he had work to do, or that he was too tired. But now I could take my time, watch the seasons change, feel the sun on my face, and not have to answer to anyone. I would stop by a little cafe on the way home, order a coffee, and sit by the window watching the world go by. I had started journaling, something I used to do when I was younger but had stopped because Jack didn't understand it. He would always ask why I was writing so much. "You're just wasting your time," he would say. But now I was writing for myself, expressing thoughts and feelings that I had suppressed for years. I had been so focused on making him happy, making everyone happy, that I had forgotten what it was like to be at peace with myself. But now I was reclaiming that peace. I didn't need anyone else to validate me. I was learning to be content with who I was. A few weeks after Jack's visit to Linda, I got an unexpected call from my son Daniel. We hadn't talked much since Jack left, and our relationship had been strained. He had always been close to his father, and the separation had been hard on him. "Mom, can we talk?" he asked, his voice hesitant. I was surprised. Daniel had never really been the one to reach out to me, especially after everything that happened. "Of course," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "What's going on?" I've been thinking a lot lately," he began, his words coming out slowly. "I know things have been difficult, and I know I haven't been there for you like I should have been. I just want to say I'm sorry." I felt a lump form in my throat. I wasn't expecting an apology from him. "It's okay, Daniel," I said softly. "We've all been through a lot. But you don't have to apologize." "No, Mom, I do," he insisted. "I've been really selfish and I realize that now. I should have been there for you more. And I should have supported you instead of just shutting down." I stayed silent for a moment, processing what he was saying. I had always wanted my children to understand what I went through, but it never felt like they truly did. And now, hearing Daniel express his regret, it felt like a weight lifting off my shoulders. "Thank you, Daniel," I said quietly. "That means a lot to me." We talked for a little longer, and by the end of the conversation I could sense a shift in our relationship. It wasn't going to be easy to rebuild the trust we had lost, but it was a start. Over the next few weeks, Daniel came by more often. We would go for walks together, talk about the past, and slowly, piece by piece, our bond started to heal. It wasn't perfect, and there were still moments of tension, but I could feel that we were both trying. I didn't expect things to go back to the way they were before, but I didn't need them to. I just needed us to move forward. Meanwhile, Jack kept trying to reach out. He called, sent messages, and even showed up at my door a few times, but I was done with him. I had given him everything, and he threw it away. Now it was my turn to live my life. One day, after a long week of work, I decided to treat myself. I booked a spa day, something I had never done before because I always felt guilty about spending money on myself. But now I was learning that I didn't have to feel guilty. I deserved to take care of myself. The spa day was everything I needed and more. It was a reminder that I could enjoy life without the weight of everyone else's expectations. As I lay there letting the stress melt away, I realized how far I had come. I wasn't the same person I had been when Jack left. I was stronger, more confident, and more at peace with myself than I had ever been. I wasn't waiting for someone to save me anymore. I was saving myself. After the spa day, I decided to make a change. I wanted to start a new chapter in my life, something that was completely mine. I started taking classes, art, photography, even cooking. Things I had always wanted to do but never had the chance to. I was exploring, creating, and learning in ways I never thought possible. I had spent so many years living for others that I forgot what it was like to live for me. But now I was remembering. I knew that life wasn't going to be perfect, and I wasn't going to have all the answers. But I didn't need to. I was learning to enjoy the journey, to take things one day at a time, and to appreciate the freedom I had fought so hard to find. Jack could stay in his new life. Daniel could figure out his own path. But me? I was finally living my own life, and it felt better than I ever imagined. I had been settling into my new routine for months now, and for the first time in what felt like a lifetime, I was truly content. I had learned how to embrace my new life without the constant weight of expectations on my shoulders. I was finally living for myself, and it felt incredible. The loneliness that had once consumed me was slowly fading, replaced with a sense of empowerment. I had built my own little world, and it was a peaceful, fulfilling place to be. I was no longer defined by Jack or the life we had shared. The woman I was becoming was someone entirely new, a version of myself I had almost forgotten existed. I felt free. But then, just when I thought I had fully moved on, Jack came back into the picture in the most unexpected way. It was an ordinary Tuesday morning when I received a call from Linda. She was one of the few people who had stuck by me through everything, and I knew I could trust her. "Martha, you've got to hear this," she said, her voice filled with a sense of urgency. "Jack is back in town, and he's asking around about you again." I felt my heart skip a beat. Even though I had moved on, even though I had told myself I was done with him, a part of me still reacted to hearing his name. "What's he want now?" I asked, my voice flat, betraying none of the emotions that were stirring inside me. "He says he's sorry. That he made a mistake," Linda continued. "And he's trying to make amends. I think he wants to see you." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. After everything, after he walked away from me and our life together, now he wanted to make things right? He had no idea what he had done to me, to us. He couldn't just waltz back into my life like nothing happened. "Tell him it's too late," I said, my voice steady. "I'm not interested. I've moved on." Linda hesitated. "Martha, I know you're strong, but don't you think you should at least hear him out? Maybe there's something he really wants to say." I took a deep breath. "I've heard enough. I've already heard everything I need to know from him. He made his choice." I hung up the phone, the silence that followed giving me a strange sense of relief. I knew Linda meant well, but I wasn't going to allow Jack back into my life. I had spent far too long waiting for him, for his affection, his approval, his love. I wasn't going to do that anymore. I wasn't going to let him take back the pieces of me I had worked so hard to put together. I had my own life now, and it was better without him. The next few days passed by quietly. I kept myself busy with work, with my hobbies, with the simple pleasures of everyday life. I took walks in the park, went to the local farmer's market, tried new recipes. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was living in the moment, not waiting for something or someone to make me feel whole. But then one afternoon I received a letter. It was from Jack. I hadn't heard from him in weeks, and I had no idea what he could want now. With a sense of dread, I opened the envelope. His handwriting was familiar, yet it felt distant. "Martha," the letter began. "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I have to try. I've made so many mistakes and I regret everything. I left you, but I can't change that. All I can do is beg for your forgiveness and ask if we can talk. I know I've hurt you, but I miss you. I want to make things right. Please give me one more chance to explain myself." I put the letter down slowly. My mind was racing. Part of me wanted to pick up the phone and call him, to hear his voice and see if maybe, just maybe, he had changed. But another part of me knew better. I had spent so many years hoping he would change, hoping he would see me for who I was and not just as someone to fill the space in his life. But now I wasn't the same person I used to be. I had learned to live for myself, to appreciate the woman I had become. Jack didn't define me anymore. I didn't need him to complete me. I had found my own completeness, and I wasn't about to let him come in and shatter that. I folded the letter carefully, placing it back in the envelope. I didn't need to read it again. I didn't need to hear anything else he had to say. I had already made my choice. I wasn't going back to the person I had been. I wasn't going to let him make me doubt the life I had built. I had finally found my peace. As I sat back in my chair, I felt a sense of calm wash over me. The decision was made. I wasn't going to reach out to Jack. I wasn't going to let him back into my life. I had already moved on, and I was going to keep moving forward no matter what. I spent the next few days and a daze, a mix of emotions swirling inside me. I had been living my life for so long with Jack at the center of it all, but now he was gone, and I was starting to realize that my life didn't have to revolve around him anymore. The weight of the past few months felt heavy, but I was slowly beginning to shed it, like layers of skin falling away. I no longer had to be the person I thought I had to be for him. I didn't have to apologize for taking care of myself. It was all mine now, my life, my choices, my future. The phone rang one evening, breaking the silence of my newly peaceful life. It was Daniel. I hadn't heard from him much since Jack left, and when I saw his name on the screen, a part of me tensed up. "Mom," he said, his voice tentative, as if unsure how to approach me after everything. "Can we talk?" I was surprised. It had been weeks since we had really had a conversation, and I was unsure what he wanted to say. "Of course, what's going on?" I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. I wasn't sure where we stood anymore, but I wanted to keep an open line of communication. I've been thinking about everything that's happened, he said slowly, his words laced with hesitation. And I want to make things right between us. I don't want to keep drifting apart. I miss you. I sat there, letting his words sink in. I knew our relationship had been strained for a long time, especially after Jack's affair. It wasn't just my marriage that had crumbled. It felt like our family had fractured too. But hearing Daniel's voice, filled with regret and longing, stirred something in me. I miss you too, Daniel, I said, my heart softening. But things have changed. We can't go back to how things were before. There was silence on the other end, but I could hear him breathing, thinking carefully about his next words. I don't want to go back, Mom, he said, his voice firm now. I just want to move forward. With you. As family. His words were raw, honest, and I could tell he meant it. It was hard to explain, but in that moment I realized how much I had been missing from him. I had spent so much time focusing on myself that I had forgotten the importance of family, what little we had left of it. I don't know how we'll fix this, I said, but I think we can try. I don't expect everything to be perfect, but I want to try too. After we hung up, I sat in the quiet of the house, reflecting on what had just happened. It was a small step, but it felt huge. Maybe there was hope for healing, even after all the damage. Maybe this was the start of something new for both of us. In the weeks that followed, Daniel came over more often. We spent time together, just the two of us. We went for walks, had lunch at the little diner he used to take me to when he was younger. It wasn't easy. There were moments of awkward silence, moments where we both weren't sure what to say. But there were also moments of connection, moments where I saw the son I used to know, the one who used to laugh and share stories with me. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. And that was enough. Jack kept reaching out, as if testing the waters to see if he could slip back into my life. But I ignored every call and every message. He had already made his decision. I had made mine. I was done being the person who waited for someone to come back. I was done being the person who hoped things would change. I had changed, and I wasn't going to let him undo that. I had started my own journey, and it was only mine to finish. One afternoon, as I was walking through the park, something inside me clicked. I realized that for so long, I had been waiting for something external to change, waiting for Jack to apologize, waiting for Daniel to understand. But now, I understood that the real change had to come from within me. I had spent my entire life building my identity around others, Jack, the kids, the house. But now I was building it around myself. I wasn't going to wait for permission to live my life. I was already living it. I smiled as I walked, feeling the sun on my face and the cool breeze through my hair. For the first time in years, I felt truly alive, truly free. The past wasn't gone, it was a part of me. But it didn't define me anymore. I had taken control. And with each step I took, I felt more and more like the person I was meant to be. It wasn't just about surviving anymore. It was about thriving. I was finally becoming the person I always wanted to be. And no one, not even Jack, could take that from me. I was starting to understand that healing wasn't a straight line. It wasn't just about closing one door and walking into another. Sometimes it was messy. Sometimes it meant taking 2 steps forward and 1 step back. But that didn't matter anymore. I had learned to be okay with the mess. I had learned that the way forward was through the pain, not around it. My life was no longer defined by the people who walked away from me. It was mine to shape, mine to embrace, and I was no longer afraid of that. A few weeks after the conversation with Daniel, I decided it was time to take the next step. I had been putting it off, not because I wasn't ready, but because I wasn't sure how to face it. I had wanted to go back to school for years, to finish the degree I had started when I was younger. But life, Jack, the kids' responsibilities had always gotten in the way. I had put my own dreams on hold for far too long. But now there was nothing holding me back. I enrolled in a local university, part-time at first. I didn't need to rush. I wasn't trying to prove anything to anyone except myself. The first day I walked onto campus, I felt a mix of excitement and fear. The campus was full of young faces, eager, full of life and energy. I wasn't one of them anymore. I wasn't in my 20s trying to figure out who I was. I had already lived a life, been through heartbreak, and learned the value of resilience. But that didn't matter. I was here for me. I was here to finish what I had started. As I sat down in my first class, surrounded by strangers, I realized something. I wasn't out of place. I wasn't too old to be here. I wasn't too late. I was exactly where I was supposed to be. And for the first time in years, I felt a sense of belonging that had nothing to do with my role as a wife, a mother, or even a daughter. It was just me finding my way again. The next few months passed quickly as I juggled school, work, and my personal life. It was a delicate balance, but it was mine to manage. I wasn't doing it for anyone else. I was doing it for me. Every lecture, every paper, every late night of studying was a step toward reclaiming my identity, a step toward my future. I had no idea where this new path would lead me, but I knew it was leading me somewhere. Jack called a few more times, but I didn't pick up. I didn't need to. He was a part of my past, and he wasn't going to be a part of my future. I had moved on. I had learned that I was enough without him. That was the hardest lesson to learn, but it was also the most freeing. I didn't need his approval. I didn't need him to validate my worth. I had my own strength. I had my own purpose. One day, as I sat in a cafe after class, sipping my coffee and reading through notes, I got a text from Daniel. I hadn't heard from him in a couple of weeks, and I smiled when I saw his name pop up on my screen. "Mom, I'm proud of you," it read. "I know things haven't been easy, but you're doing it. You're really doing it." I felt my heart swell with pride. It wasn't just the words. It was the fact that he saw me. He saw the woman I had become, the woman I had fought so hard to be. I wasn't just his mother. I was a woman with a life of my own, and that meant everything to me. That night I sat by the window looking out at the city, feeling the weight of everything I had gone through, and everything I had accomplished. I had rebuilt my life piece by piece, and I was finally starting to see the bigger picture. This life, the one I had fought for, was mine. I wasn't going to let anyone take it from me. Jack had his own life now, and I had mine. I had learned to stop waiting for the past to come back. I had learned to stop waiting for someone to rescue me. I had rescued myself. And as I looked out at the skyline, with the city lights twinkling in the distance, I knew one thing for sure. I was exactly where I needed to be. I had started to feel like I had truly built a new life, one that was mine. The days passed in a steady rhythm, filled with school, work, and the small pleasures that had once seemed out of reach. I didn't have to explain myself to anyone anymore. I wasn't waiting for Jack to come back, or for anyone to validate me. I was enough. It was a strange feeling, but it was also a powerful one. I had rediscovered who I was, and I was learning to live without relying on anyone else's approval. It wasn't always easy. There were still moments when I would find myself lost in thought, remembering the years I had spent with Jack, the hopes I had held onto for so long. But each time those memories crept in, I reminded myself that they were just that, memories. They no longer had the power to define me. I had moved beyond them. One afternoon, as I was walking home from class, my phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a message from Linda, and I paused to read it. "Martha, I need to tell you something. It's important. Can you call me?" I felt a twinge of curiosity, but I didn't immediately call her back. I wanted to be in control of the moment, not caught off guard. But a few hours later I did call. Linda's voice was filled with urgency when she answered. "Martha, I just spoke to Jack," she said, her tone serious. "He's trying to reach out again. He's been telling people that he regrets everything, that he wants to come back to fix things." My heart sank. Even after everything, even after all the progress I had made, Jack was still trying to weasel his way back into my life. I had moved on. I was done with him. "I don't want to hear from him," I said firmly, my voice steady. "He had his chance. He walked away, and that's his choice. I'm not interested in hearing any more excuses or apologies." Linda hesitated. "I understand, Martha, I really do. But I think you should be prepared. Jack's not going to let go so easily. I don't want him to hurt you again." I took a deep breath, trying to remain calm. "I've already been hurt enough," I said. "I don't need him to come back into my life. I've built something for myself now, and I'm not going to let him take that away." The conversation ended soon after, but it left me feeling uneasy. Part of me wanted to ignore it all, to forget Jack and his attempts to come back. But another part of me knew that this was just another test. A test to see if I would let him back in, to see if I was still the woman who waited, who hoped. But I wasn't that woman anymore. I had moved beyond that. A few days passed and I didn't hear from Jack. I assumed he had finally given up, that he had accepted my decision and moved on with his life. But then one evening I came home to find him standing at my doorstep. He looked almost exactly the same but somehow different. There was a softness to his face, an almost pleading look in his eyes. I stood still for a moment, taking in the sight of him. He looked out of place in my new life. "Martha," he said quietly, his voice tinged with regret. "Can we talk?" I didn't say anything at first. I didn't know what to say. I had spent so many months moving forward, building a life without him, and now here he was asking for a chance to explain. But I didn't need explanations anymore. I didn't need his words. What I needed was to keep moving forward. Finally I spoke. "I don't need to hear your explanations, Jack," I said, my voice calm but firm. "You made your choice and I made mine. I'm not going back to the way things were." His face fell and for a moment I saw the man I used to love. But it was fleeting. I quickly reminded myself that the man I used to love was gone, replaced by someone who had chosen to walk away. He didn't deserve another chance. I didn't deserve to go back to the pain and the hurt. "Please," he pleaded, his voice breaking slightly. "Eva made so many mistakes. I've hurt you and I can't take that back, but I want to try. I want to fix this. I know I don't deserve it, but I'm asking you for a chance." I shook my head. "You had your chance," I said, my voice unwavering. "And you walked away." He didn't say anything else. He just stood there staring at me, the weight of everything that had happened between us hanging in the air. Finally he turned and walked away. I didn't feel anger or sadness as I watched him leave. I felt nothing and that was enough. The next day I went for a walk in the park, something I had started doing regularly to clear my mind. I had made so much progress and I didn't want to let Jack or anyone pull me back into a past that no longer fit. As I walked I realized something. I had spent so much of my life living in the shadow of other people's expectations. But now, for the first time, I was living for myself. And that was worth more than anything Jack could ever give me. I didn't need him. I didn't need anyone but myself. And with that realization I knew that I was free.